Oh, me.
Oh, yeah, and Mrs. Yeah, Cook's wife. What's her name? Mrs. Shipman. We're glad to have you all here. I'm gonna dig right in since we're running so late. Um, PK's Talkback. Give us the proper meaning of the designation, whose idea this was, and you all can talk about why you bought into it. Siobhan, you can get us started. PK's Talkback. What's it mean?
So the PK's Talkback is an organization of pastors' kids primarily for right now. And I'm not sure. Can you see me?
I can't.
I see Mr. Granum just came on.
Okay, good evening, sir. How are you?
um, so anyway, I'll keep talking even though you can't see me. Um, so the PK's Talkback is an organization of pastors' kids primarily for now because we can't tackle everybody at the same time. But the organization was built to help build a network for pastors' kids everywhere, regardless of denomination, race, age. Um, we are really primarily trying to be a safe place for healing. So we're not the counselors or anything like that, but we want to get people on that road of
Okay,
healing.
let me give you a pause for a quick
Hmm.
second because we're going to come back to that part in a minute. Um, with regard to your mission statement, okay?
Okay.
I'm trying to be rude. We're gonna come back to that in a quick minute. Let me hear why. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's let's take a listen to some of your staff members as to why you bought into this to the very idea PK's Talk Back.
I guess I'll go. I am Madam President, as they call me. Anyway, uh, we our voice is not often heard, and if it is heard, it's heard in a negative light. So we figured, um, I guess I figured that it was about time for us to get a little shine in a positive manner
Mm-hmm.
and change the narrative of the stigma that the PKs have. Because we're a good group of people. We pretty cool. Most of my squad is at least, and we get a bad rap. And again, it's about changing the narrative. That's pretty
Okay.
much it for me.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to respond to that? Why did you buy into this idea of PK's Talk Back?
For me, and I'm the secretary. For me, the reason was um, when I was coming up in like my teenage years and even in my early 20s, it would have been a great outlet to have something like this. Whereas I would have had a group of people who were actually experiencing the same thing that I was going through. And it gives you a chance to know that, you're not alone. And maybe I would have maybe handled some things differently. So now it's my turn to give back so that those coming up after us don't make the same mistakes or don't have to go through some of the things that we had to go through.
Okay. So Mom, with that in mind, you want to proceed with kind of telling us what the real mission of this group is?
Sure. So we are our mission. I'm sorry, a lot going on over here. So our mission is to provide a network and to provide a safe place for healing and to offer the resources that PKs need um, so that they can get on that road to healing. That is it in a nutshell.
What makes the experiences of a PK differ from that of any other young Christian?
Do you want me
Any-
to
Anybody can jump in and deal with that.
go ahead, peoples?
You repeat that question one more time, Pastor?
How do the experiences of a PK differ from that of any other young Christian?
I think for myself, I think that we're more as a PK, more in the spotlight, more is expected from us as PKs, more than a regular young Christian.
Okay.
Somebody being more
Unrealistic expectations.
unrealistic, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. we can explore that a little bit later. All right.
I think it's unrealistic expectations, not only from the world, but more from the church.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the world actually has expectations of preachers' kids? And why so?
Because they have expectations of preachers.
So they kind of project. They kind of project that because your dad is a certain thing that you will be,
or you're supposed to be. That's the magic word. Supposed to.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Were you going to say something else on that?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right.
And let me say too that the thing is that it may not always be spoken out loud. Their expectation is sometimes projected by their body language or a covert question like, oh, you didn't do that? You know what I mean? Or, oh, I thought you would have been with so-and-so, so it's not always overt what those expectations are. But just like dealing with everybody else, like even in the corporate world, you kind of feel that weight regardless.
I'm going to hit you with some heavier stuff in just a minute. I hear tapping coming from somewhere in here.
I was going to say there's also an expectation around what people believe your relationship is with your parents when you're a preacher's kid. How they feel like they're supposed to be raising you. That's different than I think most people experience.
Okay. That's fair. That's definitely fair. Well, I think that the suggestion here is that there are emotional strains, pressures, or maybe even afflictions that are unique to just born into a pastoral family. So with that being said, you don't have to be real personal, but with that being said, what are some of the damages that you know of that could conceivably happen in the life of a kid who was born into a pastor's family? Should I repeat that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you suggest that, would you suggest that there are emotional pressures, or maybe even afflictions that are unique to a PK? And what are some of the damages that you may know of?
I say it's a possibility for all of the above. But one of the things that I have seen is that they just don't want anything to do with church. It's not that they don't love God, but as far as like church, they're over it. And that could be one of the most damaging pieces, I think. Okay. Not just that, but also have issues or resentment towards our parents.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tiffany, when you say have resentment toward your parents, do you mean the kid himself having that resentment, or there are other people in church who express resentment toward your parents?
It could be the child themselves. Now, not me, but I'm saying, but it could be the child themselves that has resentment. I mean, because I know we can admit we're always in church. Like when we were kids, we're always in church. We got to come for this and got to come for that. But I think depending on whatever the extenuating circumstances are, that could be a part where like they wasn't like, you made me go to church all the time, and this is why I feel X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I feel the way I do.
Let me ask you this, you guys, this. Okay, so in my head, you tell me that, and I'm, like I did like every other pastor, made my kids go to church. They were there Sunday afternoon, Wednesday. I think we used to have, when I was in Cardinal, Thursday teachers meeting. They actually would creep across the parking lot, come into the building for that. So a bunch of stuff. But so the question is, in lieu of the fact that there are a lot of parents that push their kids to sport, why would it be okay for somebody to do that and not for a pastor to push his kid to church or her kids to church?
I actually never thought about it that way. It's the same, but it's different. I guess with sports, you kind of enjoy that a little more. You even though there are aspects of growing up in church that were absolutely amazing, like Congress and Vacation Bible School. There are certain aspects of growing up in church that you absolutely look forward to, but it's different.
No, I get that it's different religiously or
No,
ideologically.
no, no, no. I mean, it's like with sports.
I think sports is a choice.
Yeah,
like you choose
you
to
get
like,
to
I'm good
actually
at
choose
this.
which sport that you're gonna play. You don't get to choose which church you're going to. You don't get to choose which fringe church you get to go. You know what I'm saying? So there are less choices. Yeah.
Let me push you. Okay.
Can I respond real quick?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
I think that sports being an activity,
Mhm.
the fact that church has to do with ideology, and being made to go to church all the time. I think when your parents are pastors, then it takes away the ability to um, compartmentalize, right?
Mhm.
So you might have, for some people, and like most of my friends, church was Sunday morning, right? They didn't see their parents as the religious authority. They saw the pastor as the religious authority, right? But they got to see them in a particular light. Um, and what happens when you have PKs is that you don't get to compartmentalize. Your parents are your religious authority. You get to see. You don't get to have a um,
break.
No, not a break, but a heightened expectation of them because you know who they really are, right? So everyone's different, right? All pastors aren't the same. They're not the same in church. They're definitely not the same when they get home, right? But when this is your example, your spiritual example, but you get to see the dirty part at home, it creates a problem because now there's no separation, right?
And you can, and in all fairness, in the sports world, you can kind of separate.
You can separate. So for me, I would always say, like, my dad doesn't yell at home, right? He didn't yell at home unless we were getting spankings, right? But his spanking voice was his preaching voice. And he would get loud, right?
I'm sorry,
I yell at home, right? So, and I didn't realize it till later on. Like, my pop doesn't yell at home, but this tone right here sounds familiar. You know what I mean? So everything gets put into the same container, and it doesn't need to be in the same container.
Okay, all right, I get that. Yeah, and the reason why I raise that is because there is a sense in which, we can sometimes treat things as though they are extremely unique when there are parallels. For example, when I came up, I was an athlete. I was a tall kid. I was a tall, skinny, young kid, right? very athletic. Um, Particularly when I got to high school, and even my cousins did this to me before I even started playing high school ball. But I ran to coach. Coach said, if you're going to play for me, you got to eat, sleep, and drink basketball, right? So 5 days a week, we were practicing. You know, if we weren't practicing, it was because we had a game. After day after the game, we had practice. You know, now at that point, I wasn't in church at all, but it was kind of like he was mastering my life. You know what I mean? We got to do it this way. We got to do that way. You got to be here. Him. There were days that we would have practice 2 or 3 times on a weekend, on a Saturday, and then we had to do tournaments. And when I think with regard to church attendance, I don't even know if I've come across anything that is nearly as severe as the requirements were for me to play sports and be good at it. That's why I threw that out as an example. Now, and you're absolutely right. Not everybody's experience is the same. Okay, and then you have the factor that in sports, your coach is not your dad. Okay,
But you already know, Pastor, what happens when he is.
oh yeah, it's a whole different expectation.
Exactly.
It's definitely, and that gets back to something that somebody mentioned earlier.
And you're going to start even if you're not the best, right?
Well, back in our day, that didn't happen to us. You stunk.
But when your dad is the coach, he's gonna put you in the game, and you're gonna mess up because you may not be ready to be in the game. Mm. The expectations because you're in the game are higher, even though you're not at that place.
From the other kids, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
That's a really good point.
So there are some emotional issues associated with it.
And there's resentment from those other players.
Absolutely.
Because it's seen as nepotism for you to be in the game.
Are you suggesting that exists in the church?
Huh?
You might go.
And it's funny, Siobhan and I were having a conversation last night pertaining to ministry and
Go ahead, finish your thoughts, sis.
It's just interesting being in ministry under your pastor/parent. Mm-hmm. The respect is not there the same because people expect you to get the information from your parents. Mm-hmm. My dad is my dad. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily talk ministry, so don't assume that he's giving me information that he doesn't have to necessarily give me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's really funny. It's funny.
And so it can be damaging sometimes, right? With the strain, the pressure, the expectations, unrealistic expectations to boot. Mm-hmm. If your mama sing and you don't, then you're a minus, right? You got to be doing something in the choir, or you best to be ushering. Got to be something that you're going to do because you're pastor's kid, right? Most other young folks in church don't have that. You ought to be doing something because you're that person's kid.
Yeah, and you know what? Because of that, I think somebody mentioned, maybe Tiffany did, where people just bounce because of that. Like, I don't have to take this, I'm out of here, because they don't want the unwanted expectations, nor do they want, well, you know what? Let me put it this way. They want to carve out their own identity and chase their own passion, not the one given to them. And so that's why you see a lot of PKs either leave their parents' ministry or leave the church, period. There's very few of us who have stuck to, in my conversation with other PKs from across the country, a lot of them don't stick with their parent. Once they hit 18, they go to college or whatever the case might be, they make a decision to go elsewhere to carve out their own identity and, like I said, chase their own passion.
Did you tell your colleague, Siobhan, that you guys been trying to leave, but every time you try to go, I just hit you with my spider web?
Sugar, I was gonna say they must don't have the same kind of daddies we got, because I don't really think.
Well, mine had to
And
kind of
see,
kick me out.
Tiff only got out by circumstance. She lucked up because if
No,
she
I
wasn't married,
no, he kicked me out. So Darren and
yeah,
I
but
were
that's what I'm saying. Like you got married to a pastor, so you kind of lucked up your way out. You didn't get the opportunity to leave on your own.
before the reason I can say I got kicked out was because after we got married, Darren and went to go help another friend of ours in ministry, and I was trying to divide my time and between staying at St. Philip's and being with them. So one Sunday, my dad called me in the office. He was like, "You need to go be with, your husband." I was like, "But this is my church." But he was like, that I believe that family should be together. So that was, I felt like you kicking me out. So, but, but I think that it would have been the same. I would have probably, if I had never got married, I would probably still be there too.
Yeah. Let me. I'm gonna come back to some of this in a minute, but what kind of services do you provide or hope to provide for this special preacher's kid demographic? What would you kind of services you want to provide for them?
Counseling is a big thing, because we kind of alluded to it earlier that there is some bitterness with a lot of PKs with their parents. And it could be the pastor, and it could also be the parent that's not the pastor. So we do recognize that some healing needs to take place there. Some of the relationship that's broken is between siblings. Some of it is between their own children because maybe they have laid on their kids the same expectations that they were given, and now their kids are kicking against the pricks. Um, People don't like church, so there needs to be some healing for that. So a lot of it is counseling. Um, and then we also want to have fun. We want to get together and fellowship. COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench in some of it, in some of our plans, but we want to get together and have fun. One of the things that we found as we began talking through some things is that PKs are very tribal. Um, and some of it might be because of the families that their parents hang out with. So some of us just hung out with PKs that were within their parents' group. um like some people on this board I never even met until we started walking down this road for PK's Talk Back. Like seriously, New Covenant is right down the road from me, so why did I not meet Andrew before last year? Why did I not have deeper conversations with Tiffany? Say again.
Let me stick a pin right there. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Andrew said.
You say you'd have had to be in those streets with him.
um But anyway, yeah, we want to build a bigger network. We want to break down those barriers between PKs. And then the other thing, we want to encourage PKs, and this is going to be the last thing that I say. We want to encourage PKs to be okay with um, discussing their pain. We are finding that a lot of people are watching our group, but a lot of people are not joining our group because one, there's a thought, I don't want to dime out my family or my church. That's not what we're for. And the other thing is, I think they might be a little bit scared to pull back those scabs and really get the true healing that they need. So we're going to continue to keep breaking down those barriers so that we can be the help that we want to be. I really see even reaching back and getting kids before, like, well, no, with the upcoming generations. So we want to get these kids before they really start melting in their resentment and stuff like that. So I'm hoping to get a staff member that will work with teens and then work with that age from 5 to 12 as well. So that's in our future.
Question too, as that one will be limited. Can a person get in touch with your organization if they feel that they need help? And if so, would you like to give out some contact information?
Yes, they can reach out to us. We have a website, thepkstalkback.com. So you can reach out and that'll and go to contact us. That will go to our email address. A lot of people have also been inboxing us on Facebook and Instagram with requests or questions. Some people have asked some really pointed questions, and we were able to connect them with a counselor in the area that they're in. So you guys can hit us up on Facebook, or you can email the pktb at gmail.com, or you can go to our website, thepkstalkback.com.
Information one more time, please.
Sure, that is the pktb at gmail.com. That's our email address. You can also contact us on our website, thepkstalkback.com. Or you can also reach out to us on our Facebook page, The PK's Talkback, and you can inbox us.
Now I'm going to hit you with some other stuff, all right? Let me ask you this. Have you at any given time run into the emotion from in your own life or in the lives of others where a pastor's kid felt unprotected from the negativity, can I say it that way, that exists sometimes in the church? Have you felt like unprotected? Did it make you upset, angry, bitter? Talk to me about that.
And that's the point that I wanted to make a couple questions ago as to reasons why, we tend to leave the church is because there's a feeling that we have not been protected. And that creates resentment, right? And even for pastors who have been able to, who have made a commitment to make sure that their children are a priority and to let the church know that they won't deal with that type of nonsense. I think in those cases, there's a sense of you do feel protected, but I think that most of the time, mom is busy, dad is busy running the church, and a lot of things that we experience are, the collateral damage. But sometimes your hands are full, and you can't put anything down to reach out and embrace your family in the way that it needs to be done to make them feel like they are the priority.
Gotcha. Wow.
I think that my view may be a little bit different. For me, it wasn't that I didn't feel protected because my parents were very good about that. Both of them were like, you don't mess with my kids. But for me, it was as I got older and was able to really pay attention and have my eyes open to the disrespect that gets targeted towards my dad and even sometimes with my mom. And I felt that at that time, because I wasn't yet technically an adult, you really don't have a voice. So it's like you hear everything that's going on, but you feel as though you can't say anything, or if you do say anything, you may get in trouble or be looked at as a child. So that part, and I was like, as soon as I get old enough, I'm not, I'm going to speak up. So for me, that's the negative. Not that it was just that I felt helpless because I wanted to speak up on behalf of my parents and felt that it wouldn't be taken seriously.
Did you guys ever feel anybody, you or anybody you know, you think they ever felt like, if I do say something, if I do react, it's gonna mess it up for my mom or my dad? And
Absolutely. And then sometimes your emotions take over and you don't really care. Like,
True
not that
that.
you don't care, but you've dealt with it for so long. I had I experienced the hearing the side conversations. Like Tiffany said, in defense of them, that kind of hurt when you want to defend them and say things to hurt people back. Sometimes that gets a little conflicted, and then at this particular age here, you could probably go ahead and try it, and the conversation back ain't gonna be when I was 16, 17. You know what I'm saying? So I probably had a little more control then. Now, in defense of my daddy, try me.
I think I had a
I
little
know
bit of
that's
both
right.
worlds. As a child, I did feel protected from my parents, especially my mother. Um, my mother was hood,
Ah,
so if she hear anything, if somebody's coming at us, like she will be on it. Then it seemed like it flipped as I got older, like Tiffany. It's like now I'm trying to protect my parents because I hear things on the side. And so now I don't care. I'm an adult and I'm going to protect my father and I'm going to protect my mother. It's natural. Like I'm always on. And I think that's where the kind of, I want to say damage. I'm not sure if I want to use that word, but I think I'm slightly damaged because now I'm always on the defense. Like I'm always like on go. Like what? So I think that's part of growing up because you held it in for so long, and now when you hear stuff as an adult, you just want to spill out.
But
So that's my end of it.
but think about that you have a front row seat to interpersonal dynamics at your parents' workplace, for lack of a better words. And that's one of the only instances that you will, because if your pop's an attorney or your mom's an attorney or a doctor, you don't have access to what goes on behind the scenes at their job,
True.
right? But now you have access as a child to, all right, this is the drama that's taking place as daddy goes to work, as mommy goes to work. You know what I mean? So it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult for them to deal with it themselves, but you also feel it as a child.
you know
and you
what?
feel I'm sorry, you feel kind of disillusioned too because you keep hearing this is our family, and then you're hearing these conversations that are like, wait, that's not how family is supposed to deal with each other. And then you also hear, at least I remember sometimes hearing, well, you don't have to worry about that. I'll deal with that. You just do what you're supposed to do. And how do you deal with that as a kid and as an adult? Even to Pam and Paulette's point, like now we're grown and we can push back the way we need to. And then here's what's kind of frustrating too: we are now of age and can push back, but people still try to treat us as children. And yeah, that's a that is a kind of a conflict, and you want to be respectful, but we have to understand that respect goes both ways. And just because I push back on you doesn't mean that I'm not respecting you. I just need you to respect my space, my world as well. And I think that's where there's kind of a disconnect and there can be continued conflict.
Let me ask you, because I think what you've just identified over the last 5 to 7 minutes may be the core of what I kind of was looking to hear. What causes this kind of strain that the PKs go through? What makes you want to throw your hands up and say, okay, I can't wait to get out of here? You know, or I can't stand these people, or I love them, but I just can't be here. I think some of the stuff that you're saying is really core to that. Whether it's being unprotected, not deliberately unprotected, but maybe in some cases unprotected nonetheless, because a kid can walk by and hear a conversation that's not intended.
Mm-hmm.
It could be about mom, dad, or themselves,
Yes, I've
and
had
they
that.
can't say anything back. Pam hits a really important point about keeping stuff in. And Pam is the firstborn child in our family, and I wasn't raised in church, but when I was saved, my background is Bapto Penta Apostolic. All of those dynamics are in there, and so as the first child, even home was interesting navigating, because if you'll remember, she couldn't even listen to music from commercials.
Yeah, we couldn't.
It was
You know what I mean then. Okay. Okay. Because, and remember, I was just not long coming in off the street because I wasn't raised in church. And so all I had was what was kind of modeled in front of me. And so that's what I poured in. So in addition to whatever she was going to hear at the church, and then dealing with her own struggles and their own struggles at home, trying to navigate, how am I going to have a real life, or what is it, I know a kid wouldn't think, what does it mean to be a child? But that's really the issue. How can you be a child and grow up in this environment? You can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can't speak back. So in that connection, let me ask you, now you all are grown, you can say, I know that you have limitations on what you will say to people. But what do you do for release now that you're kind of getting a grip on what occurred in your lives as PK kids and how it impacted you? Are you finding places and ways to release some of the stuff that kind of grew in you because of the experience?
Yeah, just cussing.
Ooh!
Yeah, we have a name for that. That's called
Look out.
We got
That's
a couple
called
people
candy.
on this call with some ease in them.
Right, Paulette?
Hey, don't be trying to pull out Reverend Lee's daughter. She's sanctified. Really, how do you kind of process so that stuff that you couldn't let go doesn't permanently scar you or stay in a part of who you are inside your being? Do you release
Honestly, I don't. Some stuff I just don't deal with anymore.
it?
You know what I'm saying? I don't deal with those kind of people. I have a choice, so I just don't do it. And then some things will get addressed, and you can go tell my daddy, because I promise you, he's probably gonna question what you said to me to get me there, because he knows me, and he knows that if I'm gonna address a situation to that degree, yeah, you probably done poked the bear.
That's it. Because, when you said the question you asked earlier, like, what makes you throw up your hands and say, no, sometimes as you can get these hands,
Yes.
but I'm just saying. But for me, as I got older in my 20s, like, I would have the conversation with my dad, like, look, Dad, this is what I'm feeling. And me and my dad are kind of alike in that way. So, I would just say, hey, so just in case it gets back to you, this is what I said. If they react in this way, this is what might happen. I just want to let you know. But now that I'm older,
I'm more like him than people understand. They don't understand the part of him that I'm like, that they don't know. So
my God,
he get worried about that. Like, yeah, oh, okay, y'all play with little Paul if you want to.
Yeah, that's the Nickelodeon that when I first came here told me he'd be the dude trying to steal his cars off the car. Tires off the car. But listen, all of us need a place to kind of I hate to be a place to exhale. A place that you can kind of a safe space where you can let it go. Will PK's Talkback be that kind of place for you and for others?
Yeah,
Definitely.
I have some PK get together and we sit and we talk. It's about 3 or 4 of us, and we'll sit and we'll talk and we'll vent. And these are conversations that we can't have with anybody else.
Yep.
But you got to get it off your chest.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that means something. It goes a long way. Like you feel light, you feel lighter. That we've experienced, I think that it's critical for preachers' kids to get therapy.
Okay. What do you want today's generation that's coming up behind you, these PKs, to know about coping with the sometimes awkward experiences that you have in the church environment? Anything you want them to know?
For me, you're not by yourself. You're not alone. And I'm really praying that this organization gets that message out that you're not by yourself. I don't care how old you are. Like you can see all of us on this call right now are what, mid 30s into their 40s, and we still have to deal with some of the things that we've internalized over the years. And what we really want to do is make sure that the generations coming up behind us know that they have a place to go. And one of the things that we're looking to launch very soon is our mentorship program so that they can get partnered with an older PK and get some help that way as well.
I really love the idea of a mentorship program, especially for PKs that are coming behind you guys. That would be absolutely phenomenal. Can you guys talk to me about what would have provided a better experience for you at church or at home? Just kind of looking over generally what you've been through, and what would have provided, how do you think you could have been provided a better experience? Or do you ever think about that? What things would have maybe needed to be in place? Could dad have been a little bit more loose, or mom a little bit more free flowing? What would have made a better environment for you around the church?
I think that if there was my mother was a preacher's kid, so she had her father was a preacher, and I believe her grandfather was a preacher. Um, so she had a different. She felt for us, so she was a lot more protective, just because she had a basic understanding of our perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when if pastors who have children make a critical effort to just try and see life from their children's perspectives, I think that will go a long way.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Huh. Anybody else?
I wish I had. Oh,
Definitely a big thing. More conscious separation. You know what I'm saying, of family versus church.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's it.
If you were a kid, for example, and having a birthday party, you wouldn't necessarily want to do that at church.
No,
Yeah.
that's kind of why I
Yes.
opted not to get married at church, because when my husband proposed, and we started planning the wedding, that was the first thing I said to my dad. I said, "Do I have to get married at the church?" He was like, "No."
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's always, everything that's important has always been in front of them. Not all of those people care enough about my future for me to include them in my special day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody want to see and be an onlooker because they want to see you. You know what I'm saying?
That's
They don't care enough about it.
That is
so. That's why I opted out of that, and I was so grateful that my dad understood that. He understood it. There wasn't even a big conversation because he already understood.
Wow.
That was our day, and we didn't want to be spectacles. We wanted it to be our day, not Pastor Lee's daughters getting married. No, Paula and Kenny got married.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Do any of you remember maybe what might have been the meanest thing that was ever done to you or in front of you at church?
I walked in the bathroom on a conversation about my mother and my father's relationship. That about what my mom should have done or how my mom should have handled my dad. And the look on the faces when I came out of the stall was just like absolute. Like they didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. And I wasn't that old, but I wasn't that young. You know what I'm saying? It was right after my parents had split up. So I was about 20, 21. So it wasn't like I couldn't address it, but I was so hurt and so angry because the conversation was vicious.
And these are the people that are supposed to love you. Right? These are the people that are supposed to, little Paulette, oh, that's Pastor's daughter. We want to hold and protect her, right?
And they were definitely people who I had love and respect for. I was devastated. Devastated.
Yeah. And you can be sure that your ministry is needed because there are so many times at different levels, so many times that this experience is replicated in the lives of other preachers' kids because people think it's okay to talk about the pastor and his family.
And that's when you realize that the church family ain't your real family. That's the hard realization to come by because it always happens in a hard way.
Yeah. Wow. If you could say anything to a person or persons that helped you most in the church, what would that be? What would you say to the person or persons that, in spite of all you've been through, that person was the person that helped you most get through?
Thank you for tapping me on the shoulder. Because I blacked out. Thank you for tapping. She know who she is. Thank you for tapping me on my shoulder.
Okay. Anybody? Get off my screen, girl.
Thank you for treating me like a regular person.
Yes.
Yes.
Which doesn't happen that often in church, does it?
It doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's the one for me too. Thank you for just letting me be regular.
Yeah.
No expectations.
Who spends their whole life with the title, oh, you a PK? Paul Pierce, old basketball player, was a PK. You never hear that around the NBA.
No, because he Paul Pierce. He done changed his whole image.
Wherever you go, though, wherever you go, somebody knows, oh, you a preacher's kid. Yeah.
I've been saying this for a little while. I did not know that PJ Morton was Bishop Paul Morton's son.
Oh, okay.
And so when I figured, when I put the two together, I was like, oh, it's so cool. And then Bishop is so like PJ's biggest fan. I really, that's so cool to me. He doesn't have that. I'm sure he's been through some things, but for his dad to just be so supportive and it's just really cool to me. I like that. Huh. But the fact that I didn't know, I was a little embarrassed, but I mean, he totally separated himself, even though he didn't, but he did. You know, yeah, for me, he did, I guess.
If I can keep you from speaking Pamese, what could you say, or would you say to the person or persons that hurt you at church?
Pam, save tongue.
Somebody better go first.
You know, Reverend James Moore tells a story of, I think it's James Moore, of a night that he had a church meeting, and somebody really made him mad, and he just wanted to let loose on him. So he looked over at a deacon who he knew could cut it loose, and he just like said, "You know what to say." um, Pam needs one of those people around her all the time. No, I'm kidding. But what would you say to a person, or could you say to a person that would help them? Let me qualify that, so that they would never be prone to do the same thing to another kid.
Can I take that one first?
Absolutely.
So I think I would say to them, understand the damage that you're doing. If you wouldn't want someone to discourage or talk down to your own children, don't do that to somebody else. And understand that as kids of your pastor, we have to grow up just like your kids had to grow up. We have to mature just the way your kids need to mature. In fact, we probably need additional nurturing, which I don't think we got growing up. Well, I can speak for myself. I don't feel like I got the extra nurturing that was necessary in the congregation um, to the level that I needed. And because of that, some of my life decisions were direct correlations to how I felt. For the longest time, I didn't feel like that I could be successful. And you know what? Some of the people who hurt me the most, adults did, but kids did. Kids my age did. Um, and I just need people to understand that we we need we need to grow up and do what we need to do. We need to find our passions just like you need. And so be careful with the things that you say, the things that you do. Um, like Ephesians said, don't let corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. Because really, in the end, we end up finding out about it, and we may not respond to it, but we know there's not a whole lot that let by us. We know what's up for real.
Well, anybody else want to hit that?
I would say thank you for toughening me up because I've been in so many fights, like physical fights, being light skinned and being a preacher's kid. So I always tell them, you hurt me, but thanks for toughening my skin.
Well,
To like today, like we're friends. Like it's amazing. Like I treat them, we're adults now, and I see them on Facebook, and they want to, have conversations, and we're friends. And I never brought it up on how they, treated me. We'll laugh about our fights or whatever, but I'll never, hold it against them.
yeah.
I just let it go.
Well, all right. Would you just about at the end? I know we started late, but I'm gonna hit you with one of these. Just think about this for a second. Then I'm gonna jump to something else. Did church rumors about your family or somebody in your family ever affect your attitude at church or toward church? If so, how did you learn to handle those things? And when did you finally learn? While you were still there going through, or maybe later when you got to be an adult? I know that's a tough one to think of. So while you're thinking about that, here's another one I'm gonna ask you. This is gonna be my before the last thing. Talk to me. What should a pastor dad know from your perspective? What should he be more aware of as it relates to raising his children or her children in church?
What should they be aware of?
What do you think from your perspective? Give me some advice.
I'm gonna go back to the separation thing. You know, it's very, very important for there to be a separation of church and family, because you know, and especially it's more important as you get older because you know time is winding up. So you know, as the old folks say, you know, you got less road ahead of you than you do behind you.
Yeah.
So you got to spend time doing things that really matter.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to tell your great grandkids that in spite of how much time you spent in the pulpit, you remember the days that you took your kids to the park, and you know you remember the recitals and the basketball games. You know what I'm saying? Those things that matter to your kids were important to you too.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And because we were really pretty much raised that what was important to you was important to us, not necessarily the other way around. So that would be something that I would say. Make sure that our passions are important,
Gotcha.
just as important.
And let you be an individual. Yeah. Anybody else?
Encourage our individuality without the stigma of being the preacher's kid. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha. Anybody else want to hit that? Tell a pastor what he should be more aware of as he's raising his kids in church.
He just has to make sure that he makes them a priority, or the priority.
The priority.
Yeah, I'll resent whatever you put before me. So.
Yeah, I hear that. I definitely hear that.
And I think sometimes too, also, how pastors can experience ministry burnout. Your kids can experience it too, kind of indirectly. So just make sure you take a break too. You know what I mean? Because like my dad, I can say he always made sure we did vacation in the summertime. We would go away for a week as a family, just to have a vacation and to just get away from everybody. But I think in the world we live in now, where everything is like work, 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 always on the go, a lot of times, especially if pastors are in the process of building their ministry, sometimes you forget you got to take a breath. And not just, even if you know that you can still go, don't forget you have a family. So they need a break as well and need to disconnect.
Wow.
And when I say that, Pastor, I think that is common for a common dynamic that children who have parents who are very busy in their careers experience, right? Like, you put your work before me. I think that the difference with preachers' kids is that work was what God told you to do, right? Now I don't just resent you, but I resent that I told you to do this.
Wow.
I told you that we're going to be abandoned half the week because now it's about you following God.
Yeah. So you make God a competitor, basically, or the family's displaced, which is really not biblical. But you know, I'll tell you what. When I started off, and Paulette's dad and I been in ministry somewhere around the same amount of time. This year it'll be 40 years of pastoral ministry if I live to see it. But like, I came up in an environment where, as a young pastor, I felt guilty about taking vacations. And so it took me a long time in the pastorate to begin. Now, I've always spent time with my kids, and we went here and there, but well, of course, broke as a he hang too, but um, 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 I literally, it took for a long time. I almost felt like it was ungodly for a pastor to take a vacation, you know? And in that respect, I would say to pastors who are coming up, find a good mentor. Let somebody help you. You know, my pastor died before I started pastoring my first church. And being off the street, I learned early not to really trust people. Okay. So I never had that person that would pick up and say, hey, Ship, you need to pull apart, get yourself some vacation, not without me thinking, okay, what's this Nickelodeon up to? You know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're right. Pastors have to be reminded that one great preacher told me, he said, your family is your first ministry, you know, and it never stops being that, you know. But it's a different kind in the sense that you're not treating them like church. These are your love interests, your wife, your children. And so you make sure that you do all that you can to make sure that they're healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically as well. Make sure that they're whole. There's this intermediary question, and then there's going to be, I'm going to ask you to think about for the last thing that we say, I'll ask you that all of you take a moment and give some advice to people who may not understand the uneven treatment that PKs sometimes receive. So I'm gonna come back to that. But what did you think? Did you think about the idea of whether rumors have ever affected your attitude toward church or at church? And how did you learn to handle it? And how long did it take you to get to the point where you felt like you were free enough to do it where it didn't like really stress you out to handle it?
So I think for me, rumors, I think when you have a large church, there's just more people who can talk, and so you get used to hearing more rumors. And at a point, it became it was comical after a while, right?
Really? Okay.
Hearing crazy things about, like, some people would come up to me, be like, "Yeah, I heard your dad was like a drug lord." Drug lord and stuff like that. And this is stuff that they really believe because they heard it somewhere. They heard it in the barbershop, they heard it in the salon, like crazy stuff. I would hear things about myself. And usually you can trace stuff back to the same to particular people. And usually the ones who start the rumor mill, their names are on the side of it, right? But I just got used to it. You know what I mean? And I think I realized that, okay, if I don't want these things to affect me, then I just have to have a tough skin about it and not let them get to me, because I say it from the pulpit, like I'm a pit bull about my family. So if you say something that's derogatory towards me, yeah, I don't care too much about it. But if you say it about my family, then I'm going to approach you about it, and we'll have a conversation. And I think my dad is somebody who's diplomatic. So even though I may have intentions about how I'm going to handle the situation, when I get there, I think the spirit of diplomacy comes up out of nowhere, because I ain't bring it with me. But and so things usually get smoothed out differently than I intend.
Okay.
But I feel like after a while, you just have to. They're going to come. If you're doing anything worth anything, then people are going to talk about you
all the time,
positively and negatively, and that's part of the package.
I will never forget. I was new at the first church, right? I've always been really evangelistically oriented, not because I was in some Southern Baptist thing, but being saved off the street. I didn't know anything else to do with what I had just received, but go back to the same people that I used to hang with, right? So I've always been an evangelism buff, right? But I'm doing this training in my first church, right? My wife's in the first class. There must have been 2 women there. Must have been, I'm in my like maybe early 30s, 75. They were excited to learn how to share their faith, right? So there are about 2 or 3 other persons in there, and then the kids would sneak over into the class. Well, lo and behold, 2 weeks hence, somebody who lived just down the street from us floats the rumor that Reverend got 2 girlfriends down there that he meets with every Tuesday night. You know, I'm saying, where you get this stuff? Where you get the audacity to do this kind of stuff? And even though I was young, I'm thinking, if I was a player, would I be playing right across this parking lot from my house? And people can make up the craziest stuff.
You can't ask that question in 2020.
True.
Wait, Pastor, I was going to wait for you to finish and say, well, technically.
Oh, my God.
Technically, they might do it, and it's going to end up somewhere on social media.
Oh, Lord.
Yup.
Okay, duly noted, all right? Oh, man, I got a headache right here. Oh, man.
But for me, like, to answer that question too,
Yeah.
for me, you just teach me how to treat you. That's all that is. Like, from my perspective, like, I'm not going to respond to the rumors because for me it's a waste of time. But I know who said it, and you just taught me not to trust you. So I will act accordingly. That's it.
Wow.
And I feel like that too. Like for me, because of what people say, it caused me to be that angry, mean teenager.
Mm.
So whereas they just wouldn't talk to me. I was like, some people would like. Thankfully, a lot of my family we all went to church together. So my dad's brothers and sisters. So we had a lot of cousins that went there. But I became that mean, angry teenager who, like Andrew, is a pit bull about her family. And yeah, you got something to say, let's talk about it outside. But as I got older, I never understood what my dad meant, or that old saying that you can outlive a lie, but you can't outlie how you're living.
Mm.
So my thing now became like Siobhan, now I know how to treat you, and you can say what you want, but I know who I am and how I live. And that goes for my family as well. So go ahead and say what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But I know the truth, and as always, the truth comes to light.
Yeah.
So you'll be the one looking.
Yeah, very true.
That's the thing. Like I would never address rumors because rumors are what they are, right? They don't have. I mean, it's always that's embellished. So I would never address rumors. But if my family members told me that you said this, then I'm going to have a conversation about what you said because that's what I can verify actually happened. Mm-hmm. Rumors travel on a train full of lies anyway. So however the story came, it's probably not going to be the truth. You know what I mean? So to go back and try and address somebody or pinpoint the source when the source is never the actual source, it's a waste of time. But for those things that if you say something to my family member and I hear about it, then we have a conversation. If you say something about me and I hear about it, then I don't. There's no need to have that conversation. You know what I mean? If you didn't say it to me, but I feel like I have power in knowing that I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of arms you with the ability to, okay, I don't need this, and some people are just toxic.
Yeah.
You know. Well, listen. My apology that we started so late. We had some technological problems, but I want you to, each of you, if you can, for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, take a moment and give some advice to people who may not understand the uneven and unfair treatment that PKs sometimes receive, and talk to the kids that are coming up behind you. Those kids, those teenagers who are struggling to get through now. If you want to take, this is your closing. You can even use your preaching voice.
Madam Prez.
It gets greater later. It really does. The experiences, like I said, I had some amazing experiences growing up in church. I some wonderful memories. So it's not all bad. There are people who have expectations, and that's just their own false sense of whatever. Just don't get caught up in people's expectations of you, and respectfully learn how to voice your opinions to your parents concerning your feelings.
Yeah.
Because I learned as an adult that my dad probably cared about how I felt more than I thought he did.
Mm.
I just didn't take the time to let him know.
Mm-hmm.
So once I voiced my opinion or gave him some insight on how I was feeling, he was just like, "Wow, baby, I didn't know you felt like that."
Mm-hmm.
So learn how to communicate, and don't always assume that they don't care. They just don't know.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow, that's good. Anybody else?
I agree with what Paulette says, but I also say be you. Like, don't try to be, oh, I had to be like my mom, I have to be like my dad. No, God created us all individually. So you have to be yourself.
Mhm.
And um, until you get of that age where you can advocate for yourself, your parents are your best advocates. And because your parents love you and care about you, they will hear your heart. Um, and also, there are other there are others out there that have gone through it as well. So reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out, whether they're the same denomination as you are or not. The experience can be the same. It doesn't matter because people are people.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure, but be careful of your circle,
Mm.
because in the time now that we're in with social media, you have to be able to trust those who you keep the closest to you.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, um, that's all I have.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Anybody else want to tackle that? Take a moment to give some advice to some people who might not understand, and maybe even encourage the kids who are coming up behind you.
The ones who are coming up behind me, I would just say, reach out to people like ourselves, other preachers' kids who who might have more maturity, more experience, because it helps to have a community, right? You're not reaching out to people because they're perfect. Like,
Mhm.
that's not what the expectation is.
Mhm.
To reach out for somebody for their perfection. But I think there's a protection in knowing that you are in a community and you're not experiencing your life and the way things go. You're not experiencing that on your own.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, I don't typically listen to Kira Sheard,
Mhm.
but a couple of days back, um, I was her song "Flaws"
Okay.
was on my phone, and I found myself going to sleep by it. The only part I can remember at this point is "My flaws, you love my flaws, they make me beautiful. My flaws, you don't see them as flaws at all. Something that's why I love you." And I thought, that's kind of like as it relates to our parenting. Um, Parents are full of flaws, but we never ever stop loving our kids and wanting the best. The unfortunate thing is, so many of us operate for slightly too long in ignorance before we understand the
Mhm.
damage that our environment even can do
Mhm.
to our children. That's not that's not an excuse. I'm just saying
Yeah.
We're flawed individuals, all of us. There are so many things that I wish so much time I wish I could reach back and grab. But, and now you're there. And now you're there. So you get a chance to redeem the time by um, doing for your kids what you know maybe should have been done for you, but maybe a combination of ignorance and something else did not allow that to happen. Yes.
I think that the best thing that I ever realized was after I had children was, oh, my dad is me. He is a he is a son who became a father.
Yep.
But he's still a son, and everything that he experienced is what created who he was, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like I had the biggest thing that helped my relationship with my dad was just to realize, okay, he's a human being.
Yep.
And I think part of what creates the problem is that when you're the pastor's never a human being to anybody.
Mm,
He's that step below God.
mm,
So when I realized, like, oh, like he's not just a person, but he's really like just a person.
mhm,
Like he's just like me. He doesn't know everything. You know what I mean? And he's dealing with his own issues as well, the
Yep.
same way I am. And so it really put things in perspective almost overnight for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good. Anybody else have any encouragement for our public before we close out? I'm grateful to all of you for taking the time to do this tonight, and hopefully your witness and your sharing has um, reached the heart and the ears of somebody who really needed to understand that you're there and that you're developing ministry that seeks to help and maybe in some cases be a bridge, maybe in some cases be an elevator to lift them. Appreciate your time and you're working with PK's Talkback. Um, I can see 1,000 reasons or 1,000 opportunities why both churches and parachurch organizations. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. While churches and parachurch organizations should use the service. So do what you do, be bold, own your ministry, man, own your ministry, and find those kids because what 10 maybe in 3 years you're going to be finding replicas of yourselves, some of which may be wounded and still wounded, living in those wounds because they don't think that there's anybody out there. So thank you for what you're doing and for what you do. Madam President or Madam founder, either one of you have closing words that you want to say?
I'll say one thing. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So, I want to answer your question real quick too about what I would say to people who may not know. I want to talk to the parents real quick and just say, um, take the time to ask your kids how they feel, because a lot of times we don't say it out loud. Um, One, because we think you're too busy. So if you are a pastor or a pastor's wife, just take the time to ask your kids, how are you doing today? And what happened at church today? And something might come out inadvertently or whatever the case may be. Maybe everything is perfect, but maybe you'll learn something that that hurt your kid. That'll be pivotal. And then I just want to say, we hope that you go out on our website and look at some of the blogs that we have out there. We're still evolving the site, but there is some information out there that you can read. All of our profiles are out there. Everybody has a picture, so you'll know where we sit on the organization. Um, and maybe just use it as a tool if you're not a PK to learn some of the experiences that we've gone through. And if you are a PK, maybe you'll see something that will make you say, hey, I went through that before too. We just hope to be a network and a support for you. That's really our goal. We're not trying to just blast out everybody. We really want to be a place, a safe space for healing. So I hope that you utilize us as a resource.
Yeah, I'll just say we trying to change the narrative here. You know, like we just did a virtual seminar, breaking down walls and building bridges is kind of our topic. That's pretty much what we trying to do. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We're not trying to overexpose people. That's not what this is about. We just really trying to come together and build something, changing the narrative of the PK stigma. That's definitely big for me. So, give us a shot. Yeah, it's not what you think it is.
Amen. Hey, listen, we want everybody to know we love the church. We are products of the church, and we appreciate how God has formed us and where we are in life right now because of His grace and His kindness to us. So, this is about making the church better and a place that is not only good for people who are non-preacher family members, but for everybody, so that everybody can have the opportunity to grow, be loved, be respected, and as Paulette said, be an individual. Never lose your individuality. God bless. Thanks so much, guys, for coming on. And Siobhan, I guess you'll have to post this somewhere. But thanks so much for doing this. And again, my apology for the technical faux pas. We'll talk to you soon. God bless. Have a great night.
Thank you.